your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Weekly Horoscope. I am Jerry with my partner, Matt. Good evening, Matt. How are you tonight?
Good evening. I'm doing excellent. How are you?
Great. Great. We got a great topic for you tonight. We're going to talk about creatures from another world. Exciting topic, and we got a couple great movies we want to talk about. What are your thoughts on this, Matt?
The movies that we selected for this episode, interestingly enough, I thought that they shared a couple themes outside of just creatures from another world. After watching both of them, I realized that they really dealt with a lot of like post-apocalyptic isolation. Well, in a sense, we'll get into that more as we talk about the movies. But yeah,
Sure.
there's this strong sense of isolation in the movies with groups of people.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely a common theme here. We're going to start with 1982's The Thing, directed by John Carpenter, which is a remake of the 1951 The Thing from Another World, directed by Howard Hawks. And our we did a topic on remakes that don't suck, and if we were compiling a list, this might be at the top of the list.
Absolutely.
Our story takes place in Antarctica in 1982, and we start with a Norwegian helicopter chasing a dog and shooting at it. We have no idea why. It seems very odd. They're dropping.
Well, even before that, in the very beginning, the very opening shot, we see a spaceship coming towards Earth, and then it just kind of comes towards Earth, and then it just pans right to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
So we get this glimpse that it's an alien, that there's something coming in from a spaceship.
Just drop a little clue.
Just a little bit of a clue. Yeah.
They're shooting at this dog. They're dropping explosives onto the dog, and we see the dog run into a U.S. scientific outpost. And the Norwegians continue to fire. They're shooting the guns into the scientists, where they actually hit one. And one tries to take explosives out of the helicopter and blows up the whole copter. And the scientists are forced to shoot the one that's running through their camp with a gun, shooting at everybody. So now we have a dog and two dead Norwegians and a blown up helicopter, and we're like, okay, how's this all tied together?
Yeah.
Due to the weather, there's no comms working at the camp, so they decide a couple guys are going to fly over to the Norwegian outpost and see what's going on. Our main character is Kurt Russell as R.J. McCready. He's a helicopter pilot, and he flies in the bad weather. And they find the Norwegian camp is completely burned down, abandoned. They bring back some VHS tapes and the body of a burnt, mutilated, half-man humanoid thing that can't be explained, which is the start of, we're going to talk about this a lot in this movie, I'm sure, the grotesque and cutting-edge effects that were used in this movie were just insane, particularly for the time.
Watching it, and I watched the remastered version, and it's incredible. I just watching is like you could release this movie now and it would hold up against a lot of the movie. Yeah, it was done fantastic.
Yeah, 40 years later, I got some notes about the special effects at the end here.
40 years? No, the 80s were 20 years ago.
Yeah, I wish. They put the dog in the kennel with the other dogs, and here's where we start to see the craziness unfold. The dog reverts back to its alien form, and it's shape shifting, and there's remnants of dog, and the body's all wet and stringy and changing shape the whole time. It's absorbing other dogs.
Opens up, and you see its like skull come out, and it's just
it looks like insane. A flower, and then out of the side split out things that look like giant spider legs. It's a complete amalgamation of organic organisms. It's insane.
Almost like that Stranger Things monster with like the flower head, like you said. Yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of.
And the creators of Stranger Things acknowledged the reference that this was influential on their work. They end up torching it. I don't know what else you would do, but they get the flamethrower and they burn this thing down, which becomes a common theme. They start autopsying the man thing, and they find a couple interesting things. They pull out one complete set of human organs, and they also figure out that the cells are copying and can copy any other living organism.
Mm-hmm.
They watch the tapes and find out the Norwegians were digging, and they found a spaceship in the ice that was approximately 100,000 years old.
Yep.
Now, is that the spaceship we saw at the beginning? You know, we could assume it was.
Right. Yeah.
But they also find a hole the size of basically a man chipped out of the ice in a square, you know, and
like
imparted
like
back to their camp.
Yeah, like a coffin type thing that they just like lifted out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ice coffin, exactly what it looks like. You're 100%. One of the scientists, Blair, is running a computer program, which is always fun to watch 40-year-old computer programs run. And it says there's a 75% chance that one of them is already infected. And he also figures out that the populated world would be overran in 27,000 hours if the creature ever made contact, you know, with the populous world. Luckily, they're isolated in Antarctica, and isolation is a key theme that you hit on in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Paranoia, isolation, mistrust.
Yep.
These things start to run run rampant within the group of this camp. They find out there is still cellular activity in the burnt remains, and they find this out the hard way as it half absorbs one of the men, and they catch it in mid-transformation. Again, gloopy, jello-y, half man, half not. It's
the bones sticking out of stuff and eyeballs popping, and it's some of the best effects. I love it.
It's unbelievable. So of course, they burn this. They burn all the remains, and we find out that scientist Blair, he has damaged all the choppers, all the mainframe computers.
Yep.
He has taken out the communications, and he has killed all the remaining dogs.
Yep. He looked at the math and he was like, all right, let's create a zero probability that this happens, and we're just going to have to isolate.
For the other men in the camp, they think, he may have gone mad. He didn't share his data with them. They think he might be infected, so they lock him up in a shed. And the paranoia and the mistrust is spreading. Who's a real person? Who's not?
Mm-hmm.
They find a torn McCready shirt, and they think that he's compromised. Again, it's our main character, Kurt Russell. So they lock him out, and again, it's 40 below zero. Locking somebody out's a death sentence. He manages to break in and threatens him with dynamite to kind of regain his position of control. But now
a little bit of control, like, we all die if anyone tries to burn me. He's holding it up.
And he takes control back, but not like he had it before. Now he's got questions and people against him. Again, that conflict keeps brewing internally.
One of the things I like about Kurt Russell's character in this movie is how he just slowly starts to go like mad. Like you can just see, like it almost makes it seem like throughout the movie as it goes along, like they make you wonder if he's become one of them, like if he's become one of the things, because he's becoming increasingly violent and mistrustful to everyone. And it's either he's either A, 100% sane and knows exactly what he's dealing with, and he's probably acting the way you should act, or he's like lost his mind. And he kind of plays right in the middle of that the whole time throughout the movie, because as these events start to unfold and he sees all of these things happening, he's probably acting the right way, or has he turned into one of them, or is he going crazy? And it's just that I think they do a really good job in that movie, showing the psychosis that you'd go through being that paranoid, being in Antarctica and seeing the people you work with turn into aliens. And like he just kind of like he just kind of snaps.
One of the beautiful choices that John Carpenter made, or the screenwriters made, was, as the viewer, you don't know who's turned. So you share. So to your point, when somebody's acting strangely, you don't know if it's a byproduct of this crazy environment that they're in, or are they turning. The viewer doesn't know any more than the people in there. So we share in their tension as these things unfold.
Yeah. It's done. It's very well acted.
During the confrontation with Kurt Russell, where he retakes control with the dynamite, one of the men collapses due to an apparent heart attack. When they get him up on the table, and they're going to use the chest paddles on him, as the one doctor pushes down with the chest paddles, the chest completely opens up like into giant teeth and takes off the man's arms.
I loved it. Yeah.
It was just
it's
insane.
Brutal. Yeah. The scenes in this movie are brutal. There's no cutaways. There's no like camera cutaways. There's none of that.
Yeah,
they show you everything. Yeah.
So of course they burn the body. They burn the doctor who had his arms cut off. Now he's compromised. And while they're burning and trying to collect themselves, the head of the body on the table, the neck slowly stretches and melts like rubber, and the head falls to the ground.
Yeah, it's just screaming. It's like it has this agonizing like bellow that's just coming from it.
Yeah, and the spindly spider legs sprout out. The head isn't even pointing forward, which I thought was like they didn't like the head is backwards and the eyes are here. It's irrelevant. The legs come out and it's headed the other direction.
Because which is a good choice of design, because the thing doesn't know the orientation of how a human head is supposed to be. Exactly. It's just this glob of thing, and that's why it was so well done. Because if it had been like oriented properly, it would have been a little bit cheesier. You know, but the fact that it's just completely disoriented, it's wonderful.
It's just living material, and these legs grow out of it, and it tries to go away. They do catch it in time and burn it in the doorway. But amazing scene.
After having a jaw drop, even their jaws drop when they see it. They're like, "What the?"
We just toasted this thing, and this still tried to get away. What it does for them is MacReady then figures out that each part of this thing is a unique organism to itself, and will, even though the body is now dead, the head takes off, gives them an idea on how they can test each other. So in one of my favorite scenes, they cut their thumbs and they all do a little test cup of blood, and they heat a wire, and they stick the wire in, and it's very tense. Again, we don't know who's
very tense
turned. Scene. They don't know who's turned. A few of them are tied up because of the battle for power, and we watch them set the wire in. And it's just a hiss into the liquid. Okay, they're good.
Yeah,
and then
almost like a soldering iron kind of thing.
Yeah. It's coming. One of these is going to react, and when it does, they set it in there, and the blood jumps out like it's its own life form, which I guess it is.
And he drops it, and it's like a jump scare kind of. He drops it, and it spills everywhere.
Yeah. Even though it's coming, it's still like a great jump. The man whose blood that was turns completely inside out. His head opens up like the flower thing you spoke of earlier, and they grab the man next to him, and they stick his head in the opening, so his head's completely engulfed where this man's head once was.
His head opens up and he bites him with that head. And it starts shaking him like a pit bull, like he's like shaking like a pit bull, just like ragdolling him.
It just crazy. So they got to burn them both. The numbers are dwindling here. They go out to give Blair, who's locked in the shed, they want to give him the test, and he is gone. And they discover tunnels under the shed, and they find he was building a ship down there.
The helicopter stuff, right?
With the parts and everything he was destroying. The generator is out. So they decide they got to burn everything to prevent the thing from freezing itself back into hibernation. It's figured out that it's probably not going to get out of here So it's just going to go back into hibernation, wait for a
Yeah.
rescue team, and try again. So they don't want to let that happen.
No, the Kurosawa has that line where it says, "Time to heat things up around here."
Yeah, yeah, -40. Yeah,
Classic. Yeah, the classic 80s.
yeah, you got to have a one-liner.
Yeah,
And Kurt Russell is great. He is
he's awesome.
probably my second favorite actor of all time.
Yeah,
And
he's one of the best.
super good in this. And the movies he did with John Carpenter in the early '80s are all just great flicks as far as I'm concerned. They're planning charges to blow up the camp completely. And while they're planning the charges, Blair emerges and attacks Gary, one of the guys who are remaining, and he sticks his hands into his face underneath his skin and completely stretches his face and head out, which is just another one of those. How? It is done so well.
The special effects are extraordinary in this movie.
Yeah. And finally, the thing comes up through the floor, the thing that has been compiling bits and parts of all these organisms in its time. Now it's huge. It's monstrous. It's got shapes of dogs sticking out of it. It's got human heads and teeth and eyeballs and arms, and
big tentacle comes up. Yeah,
it's just a mess. And McCready decides to throw the dynamite at it, and he blows it up in a huge explosion. Now the whole camp is burning. There's no shelter anymore. The whole camp is basically done.
Yeah,
and we're left with two people left: McCready and Childs, Keith David, the actor who had disappeared when they were planting the charges. So now there's only two of them left.
The mistrust is lingering. Yeah, it's still there. Yeah. Even with two people left, they still don't trust each other.
Yeah, neither knows is the other one human or not. But they know they're both going to freeze to death, and the thing's not going to make it out. So they share a drink, and we pretty much know it's a doomed scenario for both of them. And cut to the end. Again, I hadn't seen this movie in quite a while, and
it's been a while for me too.
It's so darn good.
Yeah,
it got
one of the best ever.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny because when it came out, it didn't do great business at the box office. It was released the same year as E.T., and people preferred the more family-friendly Alien than this one for whatever reason. It made $19 million on a $15.6 million budget, so it wasn't a huge loser, but it couldn't be said that it made any money.
Yeah, it was like a margin. Yeah,
the critics did not like it. The reviews were bad. They didn't quite know how to deal with the special effects. And one thing I found interesting is it was a major Hollywood production with no women, and they had said you can't make a movie without women. And of course they made it, and some people pointed to it being not a huge success, as that was part of the reason. See, you can't make a movie without women. A lot of the people who reviewed it negatively now have it in their top 10 all-time horror or sci-fi movies.
Yeah, they kind of go back and look at them like, okay, wait, there was something here.
And it was home video, VHS tapes. And when it made the rounds on television or pay channels, when people started to really reevaluate it, it caught more eyeballs, and people said, "Wow, this is amazing."
Yeah.
John Carpenter had Ennio Morricone write the score. He is the famous Italian composer who did The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and he had done several horror movies. Most of it was not used because he didn't felt it matched the tone of the movie.
Yeah.
And in a really cool twist, I know you like Quentin Tarantino trivia. Much of that score was reused by Tarantino in The Hateful Eight, which is ironically another movie about a group of people frozen in isolation with mistrust, starring Kurt Russell.
Yes, I had heard that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. The effects we talked about was Rob Bottin, and he was 21 years old when he started working on these effects. And word is he worked 7 days a week, 16 to 20 hours a day for over a year straight. because of his meticulous attention to every single detail in these effects. And
Wow.
at the end, he was hospitalized with exhaustion and double pneumonia and a bleeding ulcer caused by overwork.
Wow.
So yeah, he put everything into this movie,
Put
and
everything into it. Yeah.
it shows.
Yeah, it does. The special effects still hold up. I don't even know if you could like you couldn't do any of that with CGI nowadays. Like it's just I think they just nailed it. It comes out perfect.
Yeah, agree. Really, really good.
I read a comment somewhere online. It was an interesting observation that someone said that in the beginning, Kurt Russell's character, he's playing chess with the computer, and the computer outplays him, so he just dumps his drink on it to fry the circuit. And then later, as he's being outwitted by the thing, he just burns everything. So there's like a corollary from the very beginning scene to the very end. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Not sure. Like, yeah, it's just an observation. It doesn't really like draw anything out of the story. But
if I have any connection issues, I can Kurt Russell it. The chess. Another interesting bit of trivia: the chess women's voice. That's the only female voice in the movie. Is the chess game?
Yeah,
and that is actually voiced by Adrienne Barbeau, who was married to John Carpenter at the time.
Wow.
Technically, there is a woman in the movie.
Yeah, technically there is. Yeah. And they reference I never caught on to this the first few times I saw the movie when I was younger, but just watching it this past week, they reference one of the characters references the chariots of the gods. He says it's chariots of the gods, man. They taught the Incas everything. Chariots of the Gods was a book written in 1968 by Eric von Daniken. And that book started the entire idea behind Ancient Aliens. Like, the show Ancient Aliens that people watch on the History Channel? It all comes from the Chariots of the Gods.
Interesting.
And so the idea was that aliens came here hundreds of thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago, and kind of taught people everything. And that's what he says in the movie. He's like, oh, it's Chariots of the Gods. I'm like, wow, 1982. I never kind of put that together when I was younger when I saw the movie. But yeah, it's funny that John Carpenter threw that in there.
Yeah, great point.
It was a very obscure book back in 1982. It really didn't get popular until the whole Ancient Alien things came out.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. All right, moving on to our next film, 2018, A Quiet Place, directed by John Krasinski. And we open in this film, and I think it's a wonderfully directed opening sequence. It starts with day 89, and the actual what you're seeing on screen is in silence, as a lot of the movie is, but there's this beautiful, haunting music mixed in with the opening, and all we see it's day 89. We see the family walking into a pharmacy. We see them not talking, making every effort to be quiet. In there, the youngest son finds a space shuttle toy. The father tells him, he can't take it because they need to, focus on being quiet.
Yep.
The son's sad, and the sister gives it back to him, with the batteries out. But as they're exiting the pharmacy, we see his hand come up onto the counter, and just his little mitt grabs these two AA batteries, and we go, oh boy.
Yeah.
And on the way out, we see the desolate streets. There's no cars. There's, no people. And we see a newspaper flapping, and the cover just says, "It's sound." And, and a picture of, the aliens overtaking the world. And I just thought in that one scene, they established so many pieces of information and ground rules without talking, without, there's not a voiceover, just visually they give you, okay. And the world is established just based on that shot.
And the entire movie actually does that really well. It's really, it conveys information to the audience before the characters get it, before they apparently understand what's going on. They're able to convey that information to the audience while you're watching it. And they do it masterfully throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, we figure out, we see them, they leave and they're walking in sand, and they're barefoot, so that their steps are completely quiet. And something I find odd, the youngest is trailing the group. In a world such as this, I would imagine that the kids would be between the parents or something like this. But they have one of the older boy is sick, and the father's carrying him, so ends up with the youngest boy trailing behind.
Yeah.
And as they start to cross a bridge in another beautifully shot scene, you suddenly hear it, and it breaks the silence for the viewer as well as for the people in the movie. You see the lights, and it starts making all these bells and whistles on the space shuttle. And the older sister is deaf, so she doesn't hear any of this, but she sees the reaction from her father, who hands off the boy to the mother and dead sprints towards him, and she turns around, and the look of pain on her face. We talk about child actors a lot and how impressive some of them are. That girl was dynamite in this whole movie.
Yes.
So the father's running back to try to save the boy, and as he gets about 10 foot away, we see this creature running through the woods, and gone. The boy's maybe 4 or 5 and just gone.
Yeah, he's 4. It says from 2016 to 2020 is his gravestone that they show later. And I think they addressed the scene later at the end of the movie when the mother they're kind of having this like somber moment, and the mom, Emily Blunt, she's saying, I could have carried him.
Mm-hmm.
Because addressing to what you're saying, like, why was he in the back?
Yeah.
And she was like, she's still regretting it. Like a year later, she's like, I could have carried him. They're having this moment together, and
I can't imagine the anguish, but you would certainly be second guessing and regretting, and what could we have done differently? No doubt about
this
it.
Entire movie is anguish. You can just John Krasinski does a great job. His facial expression the entire movie is just anguish.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Just he had said in an interview that this movie was actually a metaphor for like parenthood and navigating your family through dark times and having to make promises you can't keep. That was kind of the underlying metaphor of the movie, he said.
Well, interesting. We go back to their farm, and time has moved on from the opening scene. We see, the basement where they have surveillance. They have a lighting system. They have all kinds of notes on the creatures and information posted. And we see parts where the father keeps trying to build the daughter a hearing aid that will work for her. And we note the mom is pregnant at this point. Then at night the kids are playing a game, and I thought this was cool. They're playing Monopoly, but the typical Monopoly pieces were all replaced by little fabric or little soft things, so it made no noise as you moved across.
Yes. Yeah. It was good detail.
One of the kids, the boy, turns and knocks over a lantern, and the carpet catches on fire. So you have the little smash of the lantern, and you have the whatever noise the flames make, and then the father puts out the fire, and they all sit tense, waiting to see if that noise, although very small, was enough to trigger one of the aliens. And you hear a loud thump on the roof, and then you see 2 raccoons jump off into the yard and take off. And you're thinking, okay, they got me on that one.
Yeah.
And then the raccoons are chittering down the path, and the alien grabs the raccoons.
Yeah.
It was kind of a nice twist.
It was it was a nice little bit of comic relief in an extremely like downtrodden movie where you just like a movie filled with anguish and darkness. You have that little bit of comedy. I think that's about it in the movie.
Yeah, you probably. The father made a new hearing aid for the daughter, and he gives it to her, but she's unhappy, and she just says they never work, and she gets frustrated, and she doesn't even want to try it. So the father, John Krasinski, is going out on a supply run, and he wants to take the son, but the son does not want to go. He's afraid. He's young, and he said, I got to teach you this stuff. And the daughter says she wants to go, and the dad says no. And I always wondered about that. Was that a little bit sexist? Was it because the daughter's older than the son, and she's willing, but he kind of turns her down. And you know, she's already battling depression and all these bad feelings she has.
Yeah.
So, you know, she takes off and she goes to the site where they lost the youngest son at the opening. That we see the mother doing laundry, and she catches the bag of laundry going up the steps on a nail and pull the nail straight up onto the stairs. And we know that's going to come into play.
It's one of those things where they show the audience before.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, look at this. And you just know somebody's, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah. But when it's when it happens that makes you go, oh, geez.
Yeah. The tension is ratcheted up throughout this movie to unbelievable levels. The father and son are emptying fish traps, and they lose one, and the son is scared. He's flipping out because of the noise of the fish dropping. And the father explains to him that the sound of the river covers other sounds. And then he takes him to a waterfall where they stand behind the waterfall. And of course, the waterfall is super loud.
Mm-hmm.
And they scream like, you could finally let it out because no one can hear you back here. And that was the other kind of light hearted moment, of which there's very few, as you mentioned. The brother asks the dad if he blames the daughter for the death of the son, and he says no, and he tells him that she blames herself. You kind of given some insight into why this girl's so
it wouldn't hurt for you to
down.
say you love her once in a while, and I think that goes back to the character building for the daughter, of why you were saying like why doesn't he bring the daughter instead of him? I think he wants to just kind of protect her and just kind of show like the son, like he wants to show him how to be a man the way he knows how to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he really knows. I don't think he doesn't know how to navigate dealing with the trauma with his daughter. I think he's just as confused. Like he doesn't know what he's supposed to do with her. He doesn't know how to deal with the trauma. He knows it's not her fault. So there's just a lot of trauma that he's trying to deal with, and the dad's traumatized himself the whole time. And I think part of that scene really expresses that. Like you could see in his face when he's like, "Hey, you could tell your daughter you love her once in a while," and he has this look. He's like, "Wait, what?" Like he's hurt.
Hadn't occurred
he's
to
hurt
me.
too. Yeah. Like I've been traumatized about this just so much that I haven't thought to say that. Yeah.
My wife pointed out when we were watching this that the oftentimes loss of a child or trauma like that tears a family apart due to guilt, blame, and it's kind of you really feel for this family, and you really become engrossed in this family dynamic. They do a great job with almost no talking. You learn a lot about this family. And you love this family.
Sign language. Yeah, and it's and families get torn apart for even less. So when something like that does happen, you're dealing with a lot of guilt, and people unnecessarily point fingers, and they don't deal with certain underlying dragons of emotion, and they just let it kind of fester for years. And this movie hits on a lot of deep points.
Yeah. On the way back, the father and the son go by an old man, and he is out in a field, and they look and see that he's standing over his wife, who appears to have been gutted by one of the creatures. And you can just see the look on the man's face. He's had enough. He's basically given up. And John Krasinski's saying, and the man, just in all of his anguish from his loss, just screams. And the dad picks up the boy, and they just take off, because sure enough, the scream, brings the creatures.
Yep.
The old man, the old man is toast, which I think he wanted at that point, obviously, but he had to get his son out of there safely.
Right. But you're getting us, you're putting us in harm's way. Yeah. He wants
wait
to
5
go
minutes.
out. Wait. Yeah.
It was 5 minutes, dude.
Why'd you do it as soon as you saw me? Yeah.
Yeah. Back at home, the mother's water breaks, and she's home alone. She goes downstairs. They have a light system, hooked up through their kind of their epicenter down there. And on the way down, she steps on the nail, and it goes up through her foot, and you feel it. You feel it with her, and she doesn't scream, but she does drop a picture that she was carrying, and it shatters. And after a moment's pause, you hear one coming. So she gets the red lights turned on, which must be a signal for something bad, or there's a creature around, and she's trapped in the basement. These creatures can't see; they do everything on the basis of sound.
Mhm.
So it's stalking her in the basement, and she can't get out. And her distraction is she sets a timer, an old-fashioned twist timer, like for kitchens.
Yeah, like an kitchen timer. Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes off on the other side of the room. The creature busts over there. She gets up the stairs with her hole in her foot and in labor. So she makes it all the way up to the upstairs and gets in the bathtub. And we see there's blood trickle running down the tub. We see the anguish on her face. Great acting, I thought. Just totally believable.
Yeah. Everyone in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And the creature, we have the famous shot where she's in the tub and the creature's in the hallway, and you can see like its arms or tentacle kind of coming in. And the father and son are returning and see the red lights, and the father says, "You have to make a distraction. Your mother needs our help."
Yeah.
So the boy lets off some fireworks, and something they had set up, which was really cool.
Yeah.
The fireworks go off, and the mother finally screams and lets it all
right
out.
at that moment. Yeah, the way the cinematography, the whole cinematography of this film was incredible. But right then, that moment, like right as you see the fireworks and it zooms into her mouth, just like screaming. It was good.
Yeah, and then what he taught the kid, other noises can cover up your noises. So that was what they were.
Yeah.
That was what they were doing. And the dad makes it upstairs, only to find an empty tub with streaks of blood in it. And he starts to grieve, and we can see the pain on his face, the loss, thinking they weren't in time and that the creature got him. And then we just see a single bloody hand against the shower door, and
streak.
And the mommy and the baby boy are okay inside the shower.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the daughter sees the fireworks go off, and she's just laying, kind of at the gravesite of where she lost her brother. So she starts heading home. The baby's now, the creature went outside to follow the fireworks, but now they're trying to get the baby downstairs into the safe box they built, and it starts crying. So a race against time. Can they get him in the box before the creature gets to him? And they get him in there just in time. And the box is kind of a cool design. He gets an oxygen mask on, and then it's sealed up.
And it's like blankets in there for him and everything. Yeah, and it seals up. Yeah.
So meanwhile, the baby's in the box. The daughter is out in a cornfield, and she's trying to figure out what's going on. And the creature is right behind her. Now, she can't hear and the creature can't see, so they're oblivious to each other's presence. But as the creature gets close, there's a squeal in her new hearing aid. And she's cringing, but you see it, the actual pain on the creature, not that it really has a face, but you can see it registers the pain and discomfort of the squeal coming from this. So it runs away. The son and daughter find each other, and they go to the top of the silo to start a fire, but they're out of lighter fluid and the fire peters out. And there they have kind of a tender moment. Again, because of having the deaf daughter, they all sign, which is very handy in this world. But the daughter is kind of reflecting how the dad's not coming and he doesn't really care about her. And if he comes, it would just be coming for him. And the boy's like, "You're wrong. Like, that's not how he feels." And
that's talking about dad. Yeah, he's coming to get us. He loves you. Yeah.
But that kind of gives you an indication of where her mindset is. And unfortunately.
Well, I mean, that happens. I think they touch on a real emotion with young adolescent teenagers feeling like they're ignored by their family, or maybe they felt like they made a mistake. And it's a very complicated dynamic that they touch on in this movie.
Yeah, for sure. Back inside, when the creature was thrashing around, it broke a water line, and the mom wakes up in this underground room where they had kind of, a lid on top of it to keep everything quiet for the baby. She wakes up to the room is flooded. The creature is in there at the other side of the room in the water, and the baby's box is floating on the water with no top. So it's another very tense
The mom
scene.
has this look of horror. Yeah, the mom has this look of horror on her face.
Like, how do I get out of this? Right.
Mhm.
So she makes her way silently into the water. Again, this woman just gave birth, had a nail through her foot. Like, she's been through hell. She silently slips
living
into
in the
water.
apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, it's rough. It's rough living. And she gets the baby out of the box, and the creature ends up right next to him. So much that if this baby whimpers, they're both done.
Almost like a homage to Alien. You know how the alien gets right up to Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah. The face is right there, and you're thinking, this is, babies cry, babies make noises. How, luckily, they get out of there because meanwhile, the boy falls through the top into the grain silo, and he's struggling to stay up. He's sinking into the grain, and the door falls down and it almost hits him, and he can't get out. So the girl jumps in to help him. Oh, and ironically, the boy gets on top of the door, helps himself, and the girl is sinking. But all this noise brought the creature away from the mom. So now the creature hears what's going on there and is headed out there.
And I love this scene because they found a way to have a quicksand scene in this movie, because it's every child's nightmare to encounter quicksand. I don't know why.
Well, because it sucks.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing you can do.
Right. Yeah. They found a way to do that, which is great for the kids. Cause like, that's when you're a kid, it's like, oh, great, quicksand. Like, and Hollywood like really made me think I was going to encounter this when I was young. I was like, yeah, at some point in your life, you're going to have a quicksand situation. It's like, no, it's an illegitimate fear. Yeah, well, but it's funny that they put it in the movie.
When you sail to Skull Island and track down King Kong, you may encounter quicksand. It's real.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So the boy actually finally gets the daughter's completely under the grain. He finally gets her hand and gets her up out of there. But the creature's it's in the silo with him, and it's coming in close. And again, we see the hearing aid starts to squeal. The girl's in a little agony, and we see the agony on the creature, and it
they
tears
start to
through.
like freeze up.
Yeah, you're right. Again, we see a couple instances where it kind of zooms in on the creature's like ear hole opening, and it can hear stuff like a mile away. Like it's super hearing. So this is really bothering it, and it just jumps through the side of the silo and tears a big monster hole in the metal, which is kind of, I thought that was a little bit funny. But then the kids are able to jump out into the field. Yeah,
like the cartoon thing when a cartoon, like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, and they go through the wall, and it's like it's in the silhouette.
Exactly what it made me think of. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so the kids at this point find their dad. The dad was out looking for him, and there's a moment where they're all hugging, but the creature's still there, and it's stalking them. The dad sends the kids to get into a truck, which I don't know if was the best decision. Again, this creature can't see. I would just silently walk away, but he has them go get into the truck. Truck's
probably a natural inclination, right, to get in behind a barrier kind of thing, like.
Yeah. There's loud doors and creaky. There's you can make a lot of noise in a truck.
Yeah, I mean, they're worried about Monopoly pieces, but then they're gonna close a metal door. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but he sends them there, and he picks up an axe, and you're like, okay, well, we're gonna have a confrontation. We do not. The creature swats him to the ground with one swipe, and he's got rips across his chest, a la David McNaughton in American Werewolf in London. So he's right to the ground. And the creature is on the car going after the kids. And he finally gets to his feet, and you can tell he's hurt badly, but he's still conscious. And he signs to the girl who's looking out at him that he loves her, and he always has. And it's a tearjerker moment No matter how
Yep.
many times you see the movie, it's,
Yep.
because I'm impressed with how much you feel for this family and you're rooting for this family.
Yeah.
They do a great job of bringing you into their life.
Yeah. It's just nothing but trauma. Trauma on top of trauma. And then the child actors do such a good job, because even the daughter has that anguished look on her face. Like
Yeah.
when she sees what he's doing, it was just, yeah, like you said, it's a tearjerker moment.
You can see the pain in her face because she knows what he's going to do. And
Yeah.
he screams, and the creature gets off the truck and just takes him out. But while he does that, the boy releases the brake and the truck rolls away, and they're safe for a
Yeah.
moment. The truck rolls all the way back towards the farm, and it's kind of like daybreak now, and the kids get out, and they're back with their mother and their new baby brother, and they're kind of grieving together. They all lost someone again, and now you just have, the mother and three young kids in this world, which is, not a great situation.
Yeah.
Particularly
It's
all that
desolate.
she's just been through.
Yeah.
She's not ready to go kick any ass. She just gave birth. She's a mess.
Right. There's a brand new baby. Yeah.
But they go down to the basement, and the daughter wasn't allowed into the basement before. So she sees all the things her father was working on. She sees they got surveillance. He's got notes about how to hunt them, how to track them, how many are in the area.
CB radio stuff. Yeah.
He's got newspaper articles about the creatures, so he could learn more about them. And he's also got a table of a bunch of parts where he's been trying to build her a hearing aid. And I think for the first time she realizes how much effort he was putting in to try to help her. And it was kind of a touching moment where you could see that realization in her face. Again, no vocalization, but her face tells the whole story.
Yeah.
It's really well done. And as it approaches, the creature's down there. The mother's got the shotgun. The son's holding the baby. Everybody's just like, we're in trouble here. The girl realizes, because she's never been face to face with this. She realizes as the creature gets closer, her hearing aid squeals, and the creature feels the pain. She just makes the connection now, and so she puts it on the intercom and turns it up, and the creature goes all kinds of bananas. He folds inside out, and his head opens and flaps open. And then as he raises up, the mother blows his head off with the shotgun, which we immediately see on the camera brings creatures running through the corn.
Yep. Yeah. They're starting to come through, but they just figured out that they have a weapon against them. So it's like this revelation.
Yeah. And then
there's hope. There's hope. Yeah.
There's hope. And maybe this young girl is the solution to the whole planet. But she turns on the outside loudspeakers, gets her hearing aid ready to it. The mother cocks the shotgun, and it cuts to black. And it's like, okay, like they got a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a little glimmer of hope at the end. It was just a movie filled with trauma and despair, and just felt like the whole thing was spiraling out of control. And then they encapsulate it at the very end with that one glimpse of hope, and it's like, okay, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, and again, I keep emphasizing, Emily Blunt and John Krasinski are husband and wife, so their chemistry was kind of natural. But both of them were excellent in this, and the kids were excellent in this. And it's really other than the scene with the old man and his dead wife, the family is the only participants in this show.
Yeah.
And they're all amazing, and they really make you care about them in a way that's not always easy to pull off.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie probably 10 times, and every time I'm impressed with how much I love it. It's one of the best of the last 5 years, in my opinion.
I agree. It just watching it, I've seen it probably like 5 times. And this last week when I watched it, I was more impressed with it this time, and I don't know why. I think maybe I was just paying attention more, but it just, everything about the movie cinematically, the way that they communicate the script and everything that's going on in the movie, but without words. Like when they have that one moment where they're having like a dance together with that Neil Young song, and like she walks up to him and just kind of goes with their cheeks, you know, and then he kind of laughs and he's like, I never said anything. He's like, she's saying that she feels fat because she's pregnant, but there's no word spoken. But you get what they're saying. And I'm like, man, that's such a good script. That's such a good way to like communicate that.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
she shares the one ear pod. So then we get to share in the music. And again, it's just one of those things that makes you care about this family. They do such a good job of building the characters.
Yeah.
Great
And
point.
they're starting to slow dance, and he just starts to almost looks like he's going to start crying because they're thinking about the new baby that's coming and the son that previously died. And there's just a whole mix of emotions. And oh yeah, by the way, there's monsters outside. You know, like it's just the movie just like floods you with all the stuff that's going on. It's awesome.
Yeah. So a couple great flicks for this show. I really enjoyed watching these. They're two classics in my opinion. I loved them both, and really enjoyed doing that. And that's all we have for this week.
It was fun dealing with the contrast of these movies. Two groups of people isolated, reacting in completely different ways. And it was interesting to watch both those movies back to back like that.
Yeah,
one
I
of
did
them
the same thing.
is a group of people. One of those people is a group of people that turn on each other, and one of them is a group of people that, in the isolation, come together closer as a family. It was fun to see that contrast.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point. All right, well, that's all we have for this week. We will see you again next time with another great topic. Some more movies to talk about. Enjoy being with you, and thank you again as always.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, everyone.
Your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.